wind swept across the parched plains, carrying with it the faint hum of sorrow, a tune that lingered in the heart of every woman who had ever been traded like cattle in the name of survival. Clara stood still as her family's wagon rolled away, its wooden wheels grinding against the dry dirt road that led back to town. Her eyes didn't move. She didn't cry. She'd run out of tears long before the day her parents decided her worth was nothing more than the price of a mule and a few sacks of grain. They'd called her Barren, a word that had turned her from daughter to burden overnight. They said no man would ever want a woman who couldn't give him children. But out there, watching from the edge of his lonely ranch, stood a man who wasn't looking for heirs. He was looking for peace. Samuel Graves was a widower, his face weathered not by age but by grief. His wife, Mary, had been gone 5 years, taken by fever, leaving behind an echo in a home that once rang with laughter. Since then, Samuel had spoken to no one except his horses and the wind. His ranch stretched wide and empty, much like his soul, until the day he saw Clara being bartered like a worn-out saddle. He didn't know her, but he saw the way she stood, quiet, proud, not broken, just tired of breaking. That was enough. He'd stepped forward, silent and steady, placed a small pouch of silver coins on the table, and said only, "She'll come with me." When Clara followed him home that evening, she didn't speak. The trail was long, the air heavy with the scent of sage and dust. Samuel rode ahead, saying nothing, and she walked behind, her shoes worn thin, her hands clutching the faded shawl around her shoulders. When they reached the ranch house, a lonely cabin surrounded by the endless hush of the prairie, he dismounted, tied his horse, and turned to her. "You'll stay here," he said simply. "You'll have a roof, food, and your own room. No one's going to touch you or call you names here." She looked at him then, surprised by the kindness wrapped in his rough voice. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why take me in?" Samuel hesitated, his eyes drifting toward the horizon where the sun bled gold into the mountains. "Because I don't need children," he said finally. "I need someone who remembers what it's like to care." Then he turned and went inside. The days that followed moved slow, like the turning of seasons after a long drought. Clara learned the rhythm of the ranch, the groaning of the windmill, the creak of the porch boards, the distant call of the cattle at dusk. She worked in silence, mending clothes, cooking meals, and feeding the chickens. At first, Samuel barely spoke. He'd eat quietly, thank her with a nod, and go back to the fields. But there was something different in the way he looked at her, not with pity, not with ownership, but with a gentle curiosity that made her heart stir in ways she'd forgotten it could. One evening, the sky turned crimson, the sun sinking behind the hills in a blaze of fire. Clara stood by the fence, watching the colors melt across the plains. When she heard the sound of boots behind her, Samuel stood there, hands tucked in his vest, his hat low against the light. "You ever seen a sunset like this before?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not one that made me feel free." He gave a faint smile. "Freedom's a strange thing," he said. "Most folks spend their lives chasing it, but when they finally get it, they don't know what to do with it." That night, rain came for the first time in months, soft, steady, like a promise whispered by the heavens. Clara stepped out onto the porch, feeling the drops against her skin, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Samuel stood beside her, his shirt damp, his eyes reflecting the lantern light. "You can leave any time you want," he said quietly. "I didn't buy you to keep you. I just didn't want to see someone thrown away." She turned to him, the rain tracing lines down her cheeks. "You're the first man who's ever said that," she whispered. "Then maybe," he said, his voice low, "you finally met someone who means it." In the days that followed, a strange warmth began to grow between them. It wasn't rushed or spoken, it lived in gestures. The wildflowers he brought from the hills, the shirt she patched with lavender scent. At night they'd sit on the porch, silent but together, watching the stars spill across the sky. The emptiness that once haunted the ranch began to fade. But rumors travel faster than light in small towns. Word spread that Samuel Graves had taken in a barren woman. Men laughed. Women whispered. Samuel ignored them, but Clara heard every cruel word. One evening, with her eyes red from crying, she said, "They say I'm not worth the trouble." Samuel set down his fork, looked at her, and said, "Then they don't know trouble the way I do. You've got more worth than all the gold in this valley. Don't let anyone take that from you." In that moment, something in Clara broke. Not from pain, but from the sudden realization that she was safe. And for the first time, she believed she could be loved even without the promise of children. Days turned to weeks. Samuel rode into town for supplies one evening, leaving Clara alone. A storm rolled in, dark and sharp, and as she fastened the barn doors, she saw lanterns on the road, 4 men on horseback, faces she'd hoped never to see again. One of them dismounted, his scar catching the lightning. "Well, if it ain't the Barren bride," he sneered. "Didn't think the old rancher would keep you this long." Clara backed away. "You should leave," she said. "He'll be back soon." They laughed. "You used to belong to us, didn't you?" Then thunder roared, but it wasn't the sky. Samuel's horse burst through the rain, his figure cutting through lightning like a storm-born ghost. He dismounted, voice calm but sharp as a knife. "You boys are a long way from home." "We were just talking," the scarred man sneered. "Then talk somewhere else," Samuel said, eyes steady. "You talk too close to what's mine. You won't be talking long." The wind screamed, the rain fell harder, and after one last look at his unshaken face, they turned and fled. Samuel turned to Clara, placing his coat over her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Ain't no man gonna lay a hand on you while I'm breathing." Inside, by the fire, he checked her bruised arm gently. "You shouldn't have had to face that," he murmured. "You didn't ask for any of this." She looked at him. "You didn't either," she said. "You lost your wife, your peace, and you still took in someone everyone else threw away." He looked into her eyes. "Maybe I didn't lose as much as I thought." Tears filled her eyes. "Why did you really bring me here?" she whispered. He exhaled, his voice trembling. "Because I saw someone who reminded me of myself. Someone who'd been told too many times they ain't worth loving. I don't need children, Clara. I don't need heirs. I just need someone who'll walk beside me and remind me what it means to live." Clara's tears fell freely then. She reached for his hand, and for the first time they didn't hold back. 2 broken souls found warmth in each other's silence. Weeks later, laughter returned to the ranch. Fields bloomed. The wells ran full and the house felt alive again. One afternoon, Clara found a small bird's nest hidden in the fence rail. 2 tiny eggs cradled inside. "Maybe I wasn't meant to give life the way they wanted," she said softly. "Maybe I was meant to bring it where it was lost." Samuel smiled. "You've done more than that," he said. "You brought life back to me." That night, under a sky scattered with stars, Samuel took her hands. "You know, Clara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "the world told me I needed a family to be whole. They were wrong. I don't need children. I need you." And when she smiled through her tears, he knew the land had finally healed because love, once planted in the ashes, had grown again. Now, travelers passing through the valley often see them. A woman in a beige dress and a rancher in a weathered hat, standing hand in hand as the sun melts into the hills. To some, they're just a couple on a quiet ranch, but to those who know their story, they're proof that love doesn't measure worth by what you can give, only by how deeply you can care. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more powerful love and Western life stories like this. Tales of hope, courage, and the kind of love that finds beauty in brokenness. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and be part of our storytelling family. Every click helps these stories reach more hearts like yours.